Hi, everybody. I'm Robert Douglas. It's Friday. Please deploy your code, grab a drink, sit back, and enjoy this episode of Deploy Friday, where we're going to ask the question, must you code to be in the tech industry? And we're going to explore multiple paths to work in tech, and we're going to do it very specifically through the lens of enabling women specifically to enter the tech industry, because we have been exploring over multiple episodes the question of women's role in the tech industry and how to level that out and how to make sure that the representation in the tech industry is diverse, with diversity in the first and foremost falling along gender lines. So this is the continuation of that topic, and I have three incredible guests with me today to share their personal experiences and insights. So please help me welcome Elena Kolevska, Helen Tabunshchyk. I killed it! Oh my gosh, I even practiced. Helen Tabunshchyk, sorry, and Kristina Kushner to the show. See, everybody gets nervous when the camera starts rolling, myself included, and I just
no, it's just my name. Don't worry, it's just my name.
It's just your name. Yeah. Why don't you take that as your chance to actually introduce yourself properly, Helen, and forget what I said, and you go for it. Who are you? Where are you? What do you do?
First of all, thank you very much for inviting me today. I think it's a very important topic to discuss. I'm a director of the London branch of a global community called Women Who Code. Women Who Code is a community whose mission is to inspire women to excel in technology careers. And it is the biggest and the most active community of women engineers in the world. We have over 250,000 members worldwide, with offline presence in 20 countries. But due to the fact that we all stuck at home and have this lockdown imposed on us, and we have been having all of our events online, people from 122 countries have been joining our events. And as I mentioned, I'm the director of London branch, and we have almost 7,000 members just in London.
Amazing. And you yourself are also a coder and a computer scientist, if I understand right.
Yes, I have a master's in computer engineering. I have been working as a software engineer my entire career.
Brilliant. Thank you for joining us. Elena, do you want to also introduce yourself?
Yeah, of course. So we do share some similarities here. Not just the name, but we're also like very deeply involved in some women in tech organization, and we're all both software engineers. So new friendships here. Okay, so I'm also a software engineer, but currently I do not work specifically as a software engineer. So I started my I started teaching myself coding since I was 16, but then now I'm 36, so it was a long time ago. Then in university, I didn't want to go for computer science. I had some ideas, and I went for actually electronic engineering and telecommunication. I finished that, got my diploma, but straight out of university, I was, let's say, attracted by the freedom of choice that you get when you're a software engineer. So I went straight back to coding. About a year ago, a year and a half or 2 years ago, I kind of recognized that I've always loved writing code. I love it until this day. But when I was thinking, okay, well, what's the point of life? And am I following my mission? All those kind of things. I read one very interesting quote. Well, you are living your purpose if you are using your talents that you are born with. And one of my talents is teaching. So then about a year and a half ago, I actually found my dream job as a technical enablement architect, which means I basically teach our technology to our pre-sales engineers. So now with that, I am actually able to join teaching and still coding, because I still have to create the content, create some deeply technical trainings. So that's amazing. That's one part, and the other part, because I'm deeply involved in this teaching. I mean, I care deeply about technical education. I'm also the global director of the education program of the womenintech.org organization.
Fantastic, thank you. And I'm actually really fascinated by your job because I know that you work for Redislabs, a company of which I'm a big fan, and the product I'm a big fan. And my company, Platform.sh, uses Redis, although we're not customers, but we love the open source product and the open source culture that you propagate. And I also have done a lot of pre-sales throughout all of my jobs, and I know what kind of technical enablement that takes. And it's interesting to me to hear that you have your role, which is to educate the pre-sales team. We hire ours fully baked. If they don't know everything that they're doing the day they show up, then they're in big trouble. But that's might not be easy for you because you've got maybe a more specialized product. Interesting.
Yeah, that's exactly it. We have a full team actually dedicated on that specifically. So we educate professional services, even R&D now. But yeah, we care deeply about. We spend about 1 month in one-on-one sessions with every new engineer that comes. So they have 1 month full without task just for studying and learning all the technology. It's pretty
amazing.
Exciting.
Look at that. We're not even through the introductions, and I've already learned something super cool. All right. Thank you, Elena. Christina, please introduce yourself. Who are you? Where are you? And what's your interest in this topic today?
Oh, hi there. First of all, that was really interesting to hear about your experiences and your background. It looks really diverse and juicy. So I was so much amused. I'm here today with you girls and with you, Robert. So thank you for inviting me. In terms of my background, really, I need to say that it's quite diverse as well. And to be honest, my journey to tech was quite curly. So to start it off, originally I have 2 degrees. One is hospitality and other is in economics. And definitely this is nothing about tech. But at the end of the day, while I was trying myself in both industries, I was always wanted to work in tech, but I had no idea how to get in, because the most common, let's say, belief is that you need to know how to code if you want to work in tech, right? And that was the hook I was caught on as well. However, due to the fact that I was so much inspired by this industry, I was really trying to find an opportunity how it is possible to finally get in if you still do not know how to code, or even if you do not, let's say, want, or even you feel you're not able to code, okay? And from this perspective, project management was a really nice alternative that I just bumped in. So now I'm a senior project manager. I'm a PMP certified project manager. I'm in tech more than 6 years by now, and in project management about 7 or even maybe more years by now as well. And I got here without knowing how to code, and still I don't know how to code, and I help people to get in tech without learning how to code, actually. To continue this topic, I'm also a speaker on a conference. So I was speaking on Women Tech Global recently, and that was actually the topic I was delivering to the audience. So how to start your career as a project manager, and especially if you do not have a master's in computer science and if you don't know how to code. So here I am, and I would be happy to share my
let's actually do that.
Yeah, sure.
Can maybe to like really dive into the discussion right away, maybe it would be really super useful if you gave us the high level bullet points of that talk. What were the main things that you wanted to come across in the talk? And we can go from there.
Yeah, sure. So mainly there were 2 parts in this talk. First is how to build your career journey as a project manager, especially as an IT project manager. And the second part was about how to level up during your career path. And I have covered this topic in the first part of my speech. So the beginning actually was that in most cases, when people are expecting to come to the interview, or they're expecting to even start applying to the jobs, most likely they're expecting to hear that, well, you don't have master's in computer science, or you don't have professional certifications, or potentially you have really few experience in the industry, or you do not know the industry at all. So how do you expect to apply? Considering this, the easiest way is to be strategic and to look for alternatives. And here, specifically, project management comes in.
Okay. So to summarize that, what I understood was that if you're targeting the tech industry and you don't have that master's degree in computer science and you're not precisely a coder who can sit down on the engineering team, then you are advising to look for other roles in the tech industry that have a lower technical barrier to enter because they focus on some other skills like project management. Is that right?
Sure, absolutely. So I was focusing on project management as this is my field, but as you have mentioned, there is a lot of other alternatives and a lot of other touch points where people can enter tech without actually coding.
Mm-hmm. Okay. We're going to talk about some of those, but I want to come back to Elena and Helen for a moment from the coding point of view. Was it, I'm going to just throw a general question out there. Did either of you have any difficulties along the way entering the tech industry for any reason, not necessarily related to being a woman or not? And what role did coding and your ability to code play in that? So I need a comparison point before we talk about, the other paths into tech. I want to know how you guys got into tech. Maybe both of you can answer this. Elena, do you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. Okay, so how did I face any difficulties? First of all, I can maybe just share a quick 2-sentence story of how I learned about coding. I was kind of in love with computers. I'm originally from Macedonia, now called North Macedonia. Computers came a little bit late, at least later compared to the Western world there. And of course, it was really not common for every household to have a computer. So I would go to my cousins or to my friends to just maybe play and paint a little bit. I was fascinated. And then when I was around 16, I finally got my first computer, and someone brought in school a book, Visual Basic for Dummies, one of those for Dummies editions. I took it and I devoured it throughout the summer holiday. Everyone was outside playing. All my friends were playing. I was focused, and I was convinced that I was going to create an application for weather report, and I was going to sell it to the local TV station.
Quick question on that. Did you have a computer to go along with the book, or were you just reading the book?
At that time, I did get my first computer when I was 16. And I was working all the time, all day.
I asked because I also fell in love with computers at the age of 10. And we didn't have a computer, and I was saving my money to get a computer. And this is a whole really cool story how I got my first Commodore 64. But I would ride my bicycle around 10 kilometers as a 10-year-old to the nearest library and sit in the library and read programming books in the library as a 10-year-old without a computer to try them out on. So I was like, in a very similar way, my mom and dad wouldn't let me play Pac-Man. So I actually drew out the Pac-Man maze and tried to formulate strategies. But that was beyond me. I just predicting the path of the ghosts on a piece of paper. So I wondered, because I see a bit of myself in there, like these books that seem to unlock this universe of possibility.
Exactly.
Like a world that you can build and control. I think people who are attracted to that might like play Minecraft today, but that didn't exist back then. So it was like Visual Basic or Basic for us. Yeah. Okay, keep going. Sorry.
I think the way it happens nowadays, I'm trying to do the backwards. I'm trying to get my son to play Minecraft, and then after I put him into like programming classes with Minecraft. He's 8. I don't know if he's going to be a programmer. Let's see. I'm not forcing anything. It's probably not going to be at that peak when he gets at age to enter the working force. It's probably not going to be as desired a profession as today. But anyway, that's off topic. So going back to did I face any difficulties? Well, coming from like a post-socialist country, post-Yugoslavia, there was this thing that working men and women were treated equally. Actually, everyone was treated equally, no matter the social class, no matter gender. Everyone was drugarica, like comrade. There was not sir, madam, that didn't exist in ex-Yugoslavia. Everyone was comrade. You would even address a police officer as comrade, and he would address you as comrade. I kind of like that. I like that idea of maybe equality, but the best thing about it is that men and women were given the same opportunities because the state knew that they need both workforces. They cannot afford to have the women at home with children. So what they did, they built kindergartens inside of the factories or close to the factories. Everyone would be able to put their kids there. And the women got an equal chance at work, just like the men. So because of that, and I always saw my mother. She enjoys her career until now. She's over 60, and she's really still going forward and progressing in her career. So I had her as an example, and I had my father on the other side to teach me chess when we were young with my sister, and to always tell us that to be logical, to think things through, and to be independent. So with that preparation, with that background setting in my mind, I had no problem at all when I was trying to get in coding. Getting into university, well, I chose a career that's viewed, even in Macedonia, it was viewed mostly as male, more male, electronic engineering and telecommunications. And some people were saying, oh, you're going to that university, well, that's for guys. But maybe I got like one or two people tell me that. And my parents or some other like older people would say, but I don't know if you're going to be treated differently. You're a woman. We're like worried. Are you going to be treated okay? I had like one or two people saying, why are you going there? That's a man's thing. Everyone else was super supportive. It was seen totally normal. When I did get into university, my class was at least 30 or more % women. And it was the best students. Mostly the top 3 students were mostly women. The teachers were also, we had a big percentage of women. Some of my favorite teachers were women. So I had my surroundings, I had a lot of women to feel like, okay, I'm not doing anything out of the ordinary. I had never even thought about it, that, okay, I'm a woman, what am I doing here? It had never even crossed my mind. And because I had this mental setup, then when I continued in the workforce, I really never thought about it. Just went in, first asked for an internship, then the company asked me to stay, and so on. And then the career continued. I even think nowadays that by being a woman, by being a minority in this field, it was good for me maybe, because every time I would go and speak on a conference, people would remember me because I'm the one standing out. I'm one of the 2-3 women on stage, on a big conference, and I'm one of the 10% maybe of women in the audience. So it was, for me, I didn't have any problem breaking in tech.
That was an amazing story. Thank you so much. And I have so many questions, and we could probably do the entire rest of the episode just about questions that I have about your story. But I want to hear the same story from Helen, like your version of your path.
It is somewhat a similar story because I come from an ex-socialist country as well. However, I do not remember when I fell in love with computers. So I inherited a book. We used to have a very popular book in ex-USSR countries. It was comic styles about computers and programming. And it used to have 2 pages that showed the computer. And even though I didn't have my own computer until I was 14, as a kid, like 3 years old, I loved to open that book on those 2 pages and pretend that I have a computer and play, here it is. And also, I think my mom is partially at fault here because she used to take me to her job pretty often. And at the time, she was teaching programming at university. So I was seeing computers there. And that's why I say I genuinely don't remember what age it was. It was super, super early. And I loved computers all my life. But my brother got a computer when I was 10. And he also got a small child. So I was babysitting my nephew to get a chance to get to that computer and to take some computer time. And
please go to sleep. I need my computer time.
he was actually a wonderful child. It was a very pleasant experience to babysit him. Anyway, so at the age of 14, I realized that I want to not just study in tech. I want to study a specific area, computer engineering. And I had so many scandals at home. My mom was so against it. She, an ex-fourth-round programmer, at that moment teaching math at university, she was trying to talk me out of it. She said, it's not a profession for a woman. You're going to have children. You're going to get married. Because in tech, you will have to learn your entire life. And I'm like, Mom, that's hypocritical. So I honestly, I never learned why she was trying to talk me out of it. My suspicion is because it was like I was growing up in 1990s Ukraine. It was no fun. And she wanted me to continue studying the German language and go to Germany and marry a German guy and stay in Germany. So it was more like self-preservation. But yeah, nevertheless, so I went through this level of scandals, and there was an interesting story how I won. But yeah, I went to study computer engineering. I can't say that there were no obstacles. It's just more I didn't mind them. So, for instance, I have been refused to even get interviewed with justification. You're a woman, and everyone in our engineering team is a man. They are going to feel uncomfortable. I'm like, that's kind of illegal, but okay, thank you for telling me that. I would rather to stay away from you. I've been also asked whether I plan any children during the interviewing process. Again, that's illegal. But to be honest, I prefer these direct biases rather than subtle biases, because when your ideas get stolen, when you are undermined, where you are forgotten to get invited to the meeting, that's way worse, because in the first option, it is very rude, but you never question yourself. For you, it's like a huge red sign, stay away. Okay, life is unfair, I'm gonna stay away. But when it's subtle, it's more difficult because you start to doubt yourself, and that's not okay. And this is basically one of the points that I'm trying to change with my work with the Women Who Code community, to stop women from doubting themselves.
Amazing. So I'm going to summarize some things that I heard in both of your stories, because I think that's really the perfect backdrop for continuing the conversation towards non-coding paths into tech. So what I heard from both of you is that you came from surroundings that were extremely positively reinforcing that women, girls should use computers. Basically, the state was encouraging you by making books that have computer pictures, and you had familial role models who were technical, who could encourage that. And there was an enormous amount of cultural positive support for your interests to develop in those directions. And yet both of you cited very specific things that you noticed along the way that said, whoa, it's not like this everywhere. I'm one of 3 people on stage. There are only 10% women in the audience at this conference. What's going on here? I'm not home anymore, right? I'm not in that super supportive environment for women. And like there are people rejecting me from interviews because they would feel uncomfortable that I'm a woman. What? That's an amazingly direct bias. Like you said, it's just, it's illegal and it's a direct bias, and you're better to stay away. So let's just say for a second that for a person who's technically motivated and has learned to code from childhood, devouring computer books, taking babysitting jobs just to get access to the computer. Okay, these are strong, driven, motivated powers that are forcing you at an individual level in a supportive environment to get into code, and you succeeded. Let's think about what your life would have been like if you had not had that support, because not everybody does. As we know, there are people who are saying from the very get-go, girls don't play with computers. They play with dolls, and boys play with computers or cars. We know that, we hear about that, and we're all trying to change that. in our parenting and, in our societies around that. So let's think now a little bit about those different paths. So Christina, you've taken a path of project manager, and you got into tech very successfully. And right before this show started on the call, when we were there, we were brainstorming what are some other roles like HR. Okay, you can go into HR, recruitment and people management, people ops as we call it these days, without necessarily being super technical, but you can then succeed in the tech industry without that tech background. Project management, obviously. What else was I saying? QA is a big one. So like product ownership. You can kind of like think through the end user point of view on a lot of technical products without necessarily being super technical. What are some other roles that you would encourage people to look at, Christina, if they wanted to get into tech as an industry because of the attractive qualities? A lot of remote work is possible, high salaries, great startup culture, very big industry overall. So I want to get into tech. What are some other paths that you might imagine?
Yeah, definitely. So actually the good point that there are remote opportunities. Personally, I started in tech, and that was my desire to start a tech due to a remote work opportunity, because when I have been started, this was almost the only industry where people were able to work remotely. And if we talk about the roles, you highlighted it good. So this could be an HR and people operations managers, everybody in this department. Basically, I would say this is the most essential step for people if they would want to go to tech, but do not see any other opportunities or alternatives. Even from the perspective that being an HR or a recruiter, you will learn a lot about technical skills, about people who work there, about other options that you can explore afterwards. Other alternatives, definitely project and product management. This could be quality assurance specialists. This could be technical writers. This could be business analysts. This could be marketing professionals. This could be, social media professionals, anybody. So to give a maybe more high-level picture, today, if you look at any product anywhere around you, not necessarily within your computer, behind every product there is a development team. And if you are entering a product, most likely you will be dealing with development team in one or another way. And that could also be an alternative when you think about joining tech.
And you mentioned marketing in general, and I wanted to highlight marketing as an obvious department in any tech company that is very often populated overwhelmingly with women, and finance as well. So all of the accounting and finance, at least at my company, has been completely predominantly occupied by women. I don't know why, if that's common, but in my current company, that's the way it is. And Helen, you put your hand up as if you had something to say. Just say it. Just go for it.
Yes. Yeah, I wanted to emphasize another non-coding job that I respect so much: user experience. Because to be honest, I abandoned so many products because I have an engineering degree and I can't figure out how to use them. How are people without engineering degrees supposed to be using those products? So user experience is your main entry point to developing your product, and it's super important.
Yeah, and from this perspective, we have also missed designers. So people who are just creating everything around tech and everything that we are developing further.
So it sounds like actually it's not even the majority of the people in the tech company who are coding, which is actually true. I mean, if you look at the core engineering teams of most tech companies, they're not the biggest team in the company, usually. Even customer support, you can get into customer support in a lot of cases without having a strong tech or coding background. It depends on the product and it depends on the type of support that's being offered. For more technical products, the support team has to be basically as equally technical as the engineering team in some cases, but that's product dependent. Okay, so here we are. We've established that there are many, many pathways into tech, okay, for women or otherwise. We've established that there are very clear biases and hurdles for specifically women to go in through the coding front door. Do those same biases and hurdles afflict women in all of those roles, or is it more focused on the coders?
That is an interesting question. I assume that originally, when we were talking about tech, the majority of tech industry is men. So that was how it has started. And I would say, considering this, when women started entering tech, on one side, it might be inconvenient for men because they have somebody new who potentially they don't know how to deal with. And on the other hand, it was also inconvenient for women. At least when I have been joining, there was a lot of women, but still the majority was the men society. And from this perspective, I have seen people, girls who wanted to join, but they felt uncomfortable joining because there are so few women and they will be in the minority. So that is another side to consider. So obviously, when you are a part of the bigger group, you feel more confident, you feel more support rather than when you are joining a small group of people.
Okay. Helen, Elena, did you have any comments on those thoughts along the way? I'm sure that both of you also encounter, all of these other roles in your jobs. At Redislabs, for example, all of those departments exist. Are there clear gender distribution patterns to be observed there or in other companies that you've seen? Elena?
Yeah, there are. We can see that HR is, I would say, almost exclusively women, accounting department and so on. But we are really working very hard to try to disrupt that balance a little bit. So we implement some policies where we go to the communities and try to hire people from the communities. For my hiring, I never actually applied for this job. They reached out to me because of the conferences. I had spoken to Redis Day London, and they sent my name. Hey, you should apply. You fit. But I was maybe feeling insecure. But that's a Silicon Valley company. I don't know if I'm good enough. Would I pass the interviews? And actually,
that's one of the common threads that every show has brought up is. Maybe imposter syndrome or just self-doubt, right? And Helen, it was you were talking about eradication of doubt. It's exactly it, right there. We just saw it again. The other shows highlighted that when a woman looks at a list of requirements on a job listing, that if they're not checking every box, they won't apply. Yeah. Whereas anecdotally, generally, in huge, broad generalizations, the man in the situation will see one that he's good at and he'll say, I'm great for this job. I'm going to go for it. So That's how you were feeling, Elena?
Yeah, that's absolutely how I'm feeling. I don't know. I mean, I have some theories, and I think this is very related to how we are taught to fail and to handle failure since we were kids. As women, as daughters, we are always taught to be the perfect, exemplary daughter that always does everything perfect and never makes any mistakes. And boys will be boys. And that is not like that. We should be held accountable to the same standards. It's really not like that. When a boy fails, it's okay. Go, try it again. You'll get it next time. When a girl fails, why are you doing that? You can hurt yourself. Don't do it. Girls shouldn't do that. And that has something to do with it. So we don't handle failure very, very well, historically and culturally. And I think that should change. I really think that we should be changing that. And you know what? Another thing, I feel that moms, so women, moms, have the most power to change that, because we are the ones who are educating the next women in tech and the next male colleagues of women in tech. So I'm responsible for what kind of person my son, I mean, at least partly responsible for what kind of person my son is going to be when he grows up, what kind of husband, what kind of colleague, what kind of friend, even father, and so on. So we do have a lot of power to change how things are going to be in some 20 years from now.
A great insight, and I loved the framing about focusing on the males, the men too, to make sure that they fit into the solution equation, and not just focusing on girls. I mean, that's if we were to only focus on girls and women in fixing this problem, then it would be to ignore most of the problem to begin with, right? I mean, that would be ignoring maybe the source of this, part of the source of the problem, at least. That would be like focusing on reducing the incidence of rape by only telling women to dress a certain way,
exactly,
which is not the way that you stop rape. So I'm glad that you brought that up. Helen, I'm wondering, and I want to get back to these, all of these different roles. So I have two questions for you, actually. Did you want to say more about how you're addressing those specific doubt situations, as like Elena just mentioned, for example? And also, does your organization, how strict is that filter women who code? Are you seeing some of the other adjacent groups of women in your organization who are entering through project management or design or HR or finance or any of those? How broad is the organization in that respect? Or are you literally writing code every day with those women? Okay, girls, saddle up. Today it's going to be Kotlin.
Those are all excellent questions. I wanted to begin with pointing out the irony that actually programming used to be seen as a woman's job. There is a super famous advertisement from 1967, if I'm not mistaken, issue of Cosmopolitan, that was advertising programming to women. It was targeted advertisement for women. But then this profession became more, it started to bring in more money. So the competition started rising, and suddenly it's not a woman's job. So until mid-1980s, on average, it was a woman's job. And suddenly it wasn't. I still don't get it. Anyway,
I have an alternate theory on that, by the way. I think that the switch came when the conferences started handing out black T-shirts predominantly, and that's when all the guys started coming.
For new T-shirts.
Specifically the black T-shirts. The image I've got, right? Like the really tech nerd black T-shirt.
So I've read a curious theory about that. It was the research about the United States, but I think it applies to other countries as well. So that research pointed out that the amount of women majoring in computer science started dropping from 1984, and that was exactly the period when the personal computer started spreading. And what parents would do, they would buy a computer for their son, but not for their daughter. And then when a college/university would begin, the professors there would assume that people have already some knowledge, which people without computers wouldn't have. So it was in an even playing field. And it doesn't only, it's not only about boys and girls, it's also about different socioeconomic classes, because if you come from more like poorer background, you wouldn't have a computer just because your parents can't afford it, and no matter your gender. So that's not okay. And about the doubt, as Elena has pointed out, there are so few women, and we don't communicate much with each other, unfortunately, and we don't share our experiences as much. And something happens, and you start thinking, oh, it must be me. That's not okay. All of my male colleagues, they don't experience it, so it must be me. And then when you have this community of women joining from different countries, from different companies, from different backgrounds, and they all share the same story, you can totally see common patterns. You realize it's not you, it's the society, it's our gender education. So in this sense, the community helps by spreading the word, by raising the level of knowledge, by level the awareness of this issue, by sharing experiences. And to your last question, no, we don't focus only on engineers, although we do have God in our name and the majority of our attendees are engineers. We focus overall on women in the tech area because we shouldn't underestimate other professions other than software engineers. They are incredibly important in tech, and we wouldn't be able to succeed without them. And what I have seen happening in the past, some people, for instance, like project managers or designers, they want to learn some programming to understand better and to communicate better with the software engineers. They have no intention to change to the coding job, but they want to understand their peers better, which is great. Or they want to try something out. That also happens.
Awesome, thank you. And Christina, and you might have had something to add to that?
Yeah, I just wanted to highlight something. Yeah, definitely. This is a good point that in non-tech professions, people would tend to think about starting to learn how to code at least a little bit to get on the same page and to understand engineers better. But I do remember one step during my career when I was starting. I had really few experience. I was quite a junior there, and I was in the team of complete engineers. So they were speaking tech, and the majority of time I just didn't understand half of words that they were saying. And I do remember that I came to the CTO of the company and I started to discuss the situation with him. And I asked him, well, maybe I need to take some courses. Maybe I need to learn how to code, at least some simple PHP. And the thing that he has told me literally just directed my professional development. So he has told me the following. So why do you need to learn how to code? Forget about this. Learn the technical side of your profession. So since that time, I dove deeper into the technical side of project management, because learning tech is not necessarily learning how to code, because there are technical skills for all the roles in the technical industry, but not necessarily these tech skills related to code.
Can you give us examples about how you then did that? What changed in your approach? What did you learn?
Sure. So yeah, mainly when I was starting, I was started from scratch, let's say. So that was quite challenging because I didn't know a lot about the tech industry. I didn't know the best practices and how projects are being actually delivered. So I was learning everything from the field. But since that time, I just started to dive in every single detail. So I started to learn everything about the project management methodologies, about the techniques, about the project management tools that we need to use, about the best practices, about the project management skill set, and all the aspects of this. So there is really a lot what to learn. But again, this is related to code, but this is not directly connected with it.
Okay. Did you consider, I think it was the CTO that you mentioned that conversation with? That sounded a little bit like a mentorship situation. Okay, you came to that person a little bit as a mentor. Would you characterize it like that?
Yeah, I would say so. So formally, let's say formally that was not mentorship, but definitely I felt he was acting like a mentor for me at this period of time for my career. And actually mentorship is, well, it's a very beneficial aspect that I would suggest considering in any case, no matter where you currently are at your career and no matter what role you're taking, because even founders of the companies have mentors. And a mentor, not necessarily someone who has the career path that you would want to repeat, but this is someone who inspires you by his or her vision of things in the industry, and what is not less important, who believes in your career as well.
Yeah, very well stated. I asked because on the last episode, I think it was literally last week, we talked about the difference between mentorship and sponsorship, which was an interesting distinction. And from if Susan An, who brought that up, could articulate it better than I could. But the one thing that really stuck with me was that a mentor will give you advice when you need it, but a sponsor will put themselves out there on your behalf. Right. I'm wondering to the floor, how much of a role did mentors and/or sponsors play a role in your individual careers? Anybody can answer.
Maybe because all of us were quiet for a few seconds. I don't know if that would mean that maybe we didn't have some big mentors in our lives. I personally didn't until I joined Redislabs, where I'm working with an amazing person who is, first of all, a wonderful human being, and then a really great manager and a mentor, just because he is by nature a teacher also. But before that, I mean, that's one of the things that I'm probably a little bit sad that I didn't have in my professional career, because if I have had it, I might have been already much further on that line. And it's also a good thing with this. Maybe we can emphasize the importance that these women in tech organizations have now, because we create mentoring networks, we create support networks, we talk about these things. We talk about situations that many young women are going to face, girls even, when they choose which path should they take. And the importance of a mentor is emphasized all the time. So when these young women are going to go into their maybe first job, they are going to first, when they will be choosing a job, they will question, okay, well, what is your learning program? Do you offer any mentorship? What kind of support program do you have? So that might even be a criteria when they choose a job.
This is exactly why I hesitated. I second that. I never had a formal or informal mentor. I now have a colleague who sometimes acts as a mentor, so I could consider them partially as a mentor, but that's the first in my career, unfortunately. And it's incredibly important. And I do look at people who have had mentors in their career, and they are further up in their careers than I am. And also, even like when I mentor, I have a few mentees, and I describe some of my hard-earned experiences to them, and I warn them against doing something. And I understand that this information, it saves them not only time, but also not being stressed about something that can be avoided. So mentorship is incredibly important. And by the way, we have in Women Who Code, we do have a mentorship program. We do pair people based on their experiences and their goals. And I think it is the way forward. How do we increase inclusion? And actually the researchers, they support it, that actually not trainings on diversity and inclusion increase the inclusion, but mentorship programs and agile working teams. Those are the two deciding factors on how inclusive the environment is.
Amazing. I hadn't heard that research, but intuitively it even makes sense to me. So how can we increase the mentorship overall, if that's the key element there? And should we really focus on the coding aspect exclusively, or are there ways to mentor into tech on those other career paths as well?
Even at coding, at certain level, you no longer need coding mentorship per se. You do need more like political mentorship. How do you navigate in specific situations? How do you pitch your ideas? How do you handle failures, etc., etc. And the problem is a lot of men, they are uncomfortable with mentoring women due to various factors. And that's a huge problem, because I find myself too frequently the most senior woman, the most senior technical woman in the room. And I don't have anyone to mentor me of my gender. And this is really painful and it is counterproductive.
Yeah, that was a good point, definitely. And I do appreciate what you have mentioned previously about the importance of the mentorship. Considering this question, the last one that Robert has highlighted, well, I would say that mentorship is equally important in professional skills and in personal development. And from this perspective, potentially, the mentor should not necessarily be in the same role that you are targeting. So usually, this is a person who not necessarily teach you, because mentors are not teachers, but they direct you. So they show what might be the gaps and the weaknesses that you need to fulfill, because they can see from the different perspective, they can see from the side, and they can see something that you may not necessarily see in yourself. And yeah, considering this, mentorship is equally important in tech and non-tech roles, and even maybe cross mentorship when tech people teach non-tech guys, and when non-tech guys or girls teach tech people.
Thank you. So the episode has in the title "To Code or Not to Code," or something similar to that. Must you code? I initially wanted to play on Hamlet and say "To code or not to code," but that sounded really cheesy, so I didn't. But let me do it now. To code or not to code? If you had somebody coming to you right now, maybe you were at a Women in Tech conference, and this young woman comes up to you, maybe a little doubtful, but very excited about the potential. And she hadn't really committed herself to being a programmer yet, and she was wondering, should I code or should I not code? What does her decision tree look like, right? And how do you talk her through that? Who wants to take that one?
I can take that one. My answer would be, do what you love. Being passionate about something, it is the most important point. If you are passionate about painting, go ahead and paint. It doesn't mean that you have to code. But if you're passionate about coding, yes, go ahead and try. There are many programs to try it out, more like fail-safe environments. There are programs for girls of school age. One of them I love a lot. It's called Technovation Challenge. It's more like a complex program teaching girls of school age not just to code, but also like the whole infrastructure around tech, pitching their ideas, creating business plans, thinking about marketing, trying to convince investors, and so on. And the idea is they have to develop a mobile application to solve one of the problems, one of the social issues in their environment, and like do the full-blown pitch about this topic. And such programs, they do help you to understand whether you like it or not, or the opposite, to convince you. For instance, my niece, she didn't think about going into computer science, but when she tried that program, she actually understood that, okay, I like it, and now she studies computer science.
I would probably a little bit disagree here, because, for instance, someone may even do not know if coding is for him or for her. So how could they know if this is something that they will be passionate about? Keeping this in mind, I would also say that roles in tech are divided into other categories. People who work with people and people who work with people less, let's say. So if you prefer to work with people, if you like working with people, if you're engaging with this, and if you enjoy working with people, well, maybe you can consider other roles as well. But if you prefer to work on your own, to be deep into something, to be into analysis, to be in math, then would be nice to try at least coding.
That's a great characterization, Kristina, and it's amazing that you understand that so well, because any coder who has spent significant time coding understands what it's like to be in the zone and how isolated that is, and how that isolation is necessary. It's a blessing, and some people are directly attracted to being in that place where they're protected from all outside influence, and the only thing that's there is what they're doing in their mind. And there's something really magical about that. I used to describe when I'm coding, let's see, whom did I describe this to? Oh yeah, my wife, who would come and talk to me. I would describe it to her as crawling into a dark underground labyrinth, blindfolded, and feeling your way to the very back of the labyrinth to find out what the plumbing problem was that you had to fix, memorizing it, crawling back out to get the tools, and then to crawl back in to fix them. And if anybody did anything like ask you what you want for lunch, or did you take the trash out, you forget you're even there. You like, where, what, plumbing, labyrinth, what? And you have to start over again. It's like,
so they turn you a little bit.
It's a house of, exactly, you take a wrong turn and you end up in Bermuda.
You know,
so
that
people who like to work with
XKCD
people and people who like to work with people less. Amazing. Very good. Yeah, go ahead, XKCD.
Yeah, that XKCD comic that explains a very similar situation. Like, I'm gonna try to share it. Maybe share the link with you later. I wouldn't dare to try to explain it because I'm not that good in comedy. But what I wanted to say, yeah, I actually agree with both Helen and Christina, because I think Helen was referring mostly to like, if the decision is to go into coding professionally, and Christina was maybe referring to younger girls choosing if they want to go there. I think for younger girls, as Christina said, people don't know what they want. We have no idea. We're kids. We have no idea what we want and which school should we choose. What approach I would take now, just try things out. Do an experiment. Give Lego to your kids, to your daughter, and see how long she stays with it. Give a medical play kit, something. Just do experiments. Put them in a music class. Put them in whatever, like programming class, to see what they are interested in. And then, of course, if they find that they're really enjoying, they can stay long hours focused doing that one thing in programming, then why not follow a career in coding? But of course, I mean, here I would also include the looking into the future part, because maybe in 20 years, our jobs are not going to be at the same level where they are now.
Well, our jobs won't exist in 20 years.
I didn't want to say that. I didn't want to sound that negative. But
the skills that we bring to those jobs will be relevant in different situations with different tools, with different names. We hope. I mean, like the self-driving cars are going to put a lot of drivers out of business, and that's unavoidable, and a lot of programmers too, because now Google can design chips with AI, and code can be auto-generated also. So, I mean, the world's changing, and that's the one thing we have to count on. I would, however, say that the skills that you learn in learning to code are so fundamentally important that for anybody entering the tech industry, I would put yourself through the paces, okay? If you can find the time, if your life has the luxury that you can spend deciding what you learn, and when you learn it, then take a coding class. Do an online coding class, just boot camp of any kind, because even if you're not going to use it in your day job, the thing that it does to your brain when you learn how to do it is magical. And we've got to thank you, Gary Smith, for bringing a comment to the conversation. I'm just going to put that up there as I keep talking about it. I'm really passionate about the idea that coding is a fundamental skill that anybody can learn, and everybody should try to learn. Not everybody will get as far with it, but there's something so beautiful about deciding how things are going to work and creating this own little mini universe for yourself. And you will understand part of the tech stack better than you did before, which is also valuable as a project manager, as a designer, as a product owner, even in finance, whatever. So, yes, go ahead.
And you will, even if you never go into coding, but you work with coders, you're going to learn how to speak which language your colleagues, the developers, speak, which is also, I think, very, very interesting. It's maybe not crucial for the profession, but it might give you that extra edge to make you stand out in your career.
And I wanted to add that AI is not going to take over the humane part of coding. It's not going to happen. And then we have a huge topic of ethics in AI, where we need people of different backgrounds. This is the definition of where we need diversity.
Absolutely. So we're safer than the drivers. They're just going to sit at home. So we're at the top of the hour. Some of the people on the call actually have to leave and have hard stops. So I'm going to call a hard stop. This was great. This was super fun. I could talk to the three of you about this topic for another several hours, maybe even longer, because you're all so fascinating. Thank you for being on my show. You're great guests and you're doing great work out in the world. So keep doing it. Thanks for watching. Please come back next Friday for another episode of Deploy Friday on a different topic. And also, if you're listening to the podcast, thank you. Spread the word that, you know, there's an interesting conversation here going on about very important topics that have direct influence on the world of tech and the people who are working in it. So thanks, everybody, and goodbye.
Thanks, Robert, for inviting us. Bye-bye.
Thank you.